Matt, you brought us the tabletop gaming news this week to try out. Would you like to start with the
Uh,
tabletop gaming news?
Absolutely, I will. The big news is right now, for those of you that are old like me, you may remember that Greyhawk was the very first D&D campaign. Super, super hard. Like, nobody ever made with their whole party out of that. But they're bringing it back for the 50th anniversary.
Was that
Uh,
made by the D&D creator himself?
Yeah, it was made by the D&D creators. They used to call them meat grinders back in the day because nobody ever made it out with their entire party.
Gygax, Gary Gygax.
Yeah, Gary Gygax. The Stranger Things, when they play and they get through the whole thing without dying, that never happened in real D&D. I can't remember when I was a kid if I ever got through a full campaign with my character alive.
That's what made it so incredible.
Right? Yeah, there was real stakes. You got, yeah, anyway.
Kind of fun, too, because after you died, you got to roll a new character.
Right, and start over at the beginning. And there was a lot less role play back then. Role play kind of came about later on. So it'll be cool to see Greyhawk back and see if it's as daunting as it was before. But that leads us into some sad news when it comes to D&D. Hasbro is showing some decline in their revenue for D&D, which honestly does not surprise me. This article talks about how maybe people aren't feeling D&D anymore. It's had its time, but I don't think that's the case. It wouldn't have lasted 50 years if it was one
That's
of
shocking to me, especially with the popularity of Baldur's Gate. I would think that would ignite people to play more D&D and buy more D&D merchandise.
Right, and that's one of the issues, I think, is Baldur's Gate. It's a whole lot easier. Like, whenever I get the itch to play some D&D, instead of trying to get my D&D group together for a spontaneous session or get a new group together, I just go and play Baldur's Gate. And and so I think that's one of the issues, but I also think that Hasbro kind of shot themselves in the foot a few years ago. They put out a new terms of use, kind of like the terms of use that you do with your iPhone and stuff like that, but they were doing it for the D&D books. And one of the big things that they wanted to do is they wanted to start charging people who streamed their D&D campaigns a percentage of whatever they were making.
I do remember that.
I do too, yeah.
They also wanted to make it so that you could not stream homebrew campaigns. And for those of you that don't play D&D or aren't big fans of tabletop, homebrew is where you take the basic rules of D&D and make up your own world and your own characters and stuff like that. And that's all you. It's your intellectual property, basically.
Sure, a basic D20 system.
Yeah, yeah, but you're using the rule books for D&D, and they wanted to say that if you were going to stream your campaign, you could not stream a homebrew campaign. You had to stream one of their campaigns, and they were putting all these restrictions. And this was right before the D&D movie came out, and
Chris
people
Pine?
were, yeah, with Chris Pine, and people were boycotting, and I was a part of it. I boycotted too.
Oh dang, that sucked. I didn't know any of that. I watched the movie. It's a great movie. It's really good.
The whole thing ended right before the movie came out. Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro. Hasbro is the parent company of Wizards. Wizards is the original company who made D&D for years and years and years.
Who, by the way, also owns both Magic the Gathering,
yep,
as well as the distributor for the Pokemon trading card game.
Yep.
I don't want to call them a monopoly, kind of monopoly.
Yeah.
And they're owned by Hasbro, which is a huge toy and entertainment conglomerate.
Right.
They own Transformers. They own a lot of the stuff that we like.
Don't they own the rights to do like the Star Wars action figures and stuff like that?
Yeah, probably. And then I think they also own Power Rangers action figures.
Yeah. But anyway, Hasbro took over Wizards of the Coast and D&D and kind of, I don't want to say they ruined it, because really D&D, the only way it would get ruined is by your imagination sucking. And they just put in new rules and classes and stuff like that, which they've been great at doing. It's just Hasbro's tried to take D&D away from the players to make more money, and I think that's why they're seeing the decrease in
attempts to make it kind of like more like mainstream.
Yeah, well, I mean, shows like The Big Bang Theory made it mainstream, and Stranger Things have made it mainstream. Like people that would have beaten me up in high school for playing D&D are now like, "Hey Matt, you should teach me how to play D&D." And it's the cool thing now. You know, nerddom is getting cooler and cooler over the years.
Sure, but I mean, like more players, just means more opportunities to play, I guess. But
Right, right. You're absolutely right. But I think it's just Hasbro has a way of alienating their core fans of D&D, and I think that might be what's happening now. But again, you know, D&D is kind of on this roller coaster. It'll lose popularity and then it'll come back around. If it loses popularity now, just wait another 10 years, people will be playing it like crazy. So there's that. And then my last little bit of tabletop news is that there's a Mass Effect board game available for pre-order now. It's based around Mass Effect 3, and it's kind of a side mission for players, and it looks very D&D-esque when I was looking and reading about it, but with a little added flair and some things like that. It'll be interesting. I want to play it when it comes out.
do you play as the Normandy crew, like your Shepard,
Yeah.
your
Uh-huh.
Joker, and everybody?
Yeah. I don't think you can play as Joker, but I do know that you can play as Shepard and Liara. Everybody is on there,
cool.
so that should be cool. Looking forward to seeing that when it comes out and playing it. Maybe I'll have you guys over to play it. But yeah, I'm going to start doing.
There has not been an effort to make a Mass Effect movie with all like the video game adaptations going on right now.
They did do a Mass Effect anime movie. It was on Netflix for a while. It was okay. I wouldn't mind seeing them do a movie, but it's got to be done right. And I think that EA and BioWare are really, because they wanted to do a Knights of the Old Republic movie too, and BioWare was just like, I don't know, video game adaptation movies kind of suck. So we'll see.
But we have to keep making them until something works. Okay, we have to
Right.
keep trying.
They're kind of at this point hit and miss, but they're kind of like the most popular thing right now. Like that Borderlands movie tanked big time.
Horrible.
Did you see it?
But then you got the Fallout series, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that for a lot of video games, you have to do a series, like The Last of Us.
Yeah, The Last of Us series was great.
Yeah, I think you have to do a full-on series. I don't think you can condense it down into 2 hours. If they would have done a Borderlands series, it would have done a whole lot better than that. It was fine. It was a fine movie.
I haven't seen it. I just heard it.
I took the family to see it because my boys are big Borderlands fans, and so they wanted to see it. It was fine.
Jack Black was in there with his voice. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, Mass Effect. I never did play all the way through the one game of that I tried, but it's a series I've thought about going back to a lot because it's not that I didn't like it. I just it didn't stick at the time for me. I wasn't that into video games at the time either.
I play through all 3 of them on a yearly basis because I have the Legendary Edition now.
I played both 1 and 2. Never got to 3.
3's my favorite.
But that Mass Effect Collector series is... I usually see it pretty discounted on the PS5 stores.
Yeah, the Legendary Edition. It's great. And it's got all of the DLC and all that stuff. So it's got the added characters that you can have join your crew. It's a great game. And so that's why I'm excited to see the board game.
That's a lot of game to go through.
Yeah, it really is. It usually takes me, when I play through it, I don't do a lot of the side quests in 1 and 2. I just shoot for 3 because, like I said, it's my favorite. And then I do all the side quests in 3. But it usually takes me about a month to get through all 3 games. And then, if you liked all 3 games, you could play Mass Effect Andromeda, which everybody hated, but I actually really enjoyed it. And it was the first Mass Effect game to have full...
That game was raked over the coals when it first came out.
It was, and you know what? I still enjoyed it. I still love it. I love Mass Effect. Like I said, it's one of my favorite game series of all time, and I go back and play it all the time. Yeah, so I wanted to let everybody know, if you guys are into tabletop gaming, those of you in the audience, I'm going to try to do at least a little bit every Jolt where I talk about some tabletop games. I'm going to try some out with some friends, give them a little bit of a review, and try to put as much tabletop gaming news in our Discord as possible. You're going to love it. You'll love the tabletop gaming.
Yeah, bring us the tabletop gaming news. That's entertainment too. That's what this show is for. You're certainly not the only person who enjoys tabletop gaming, Matt. We know this. We know this.
Yeah.
About talking about the things you like.
Yeah.
When we're not, grinding on our day jobs.
Hobby time. Maybe we'll call it that.
Yeah.
Let's call the show Hobby Time. No, I'm just kidding.
Instead of Jolt,
Not
just
really.
hobby time.
It's Hobby time with the boys. That's the tabletop for the week.
Yeah, that's all I got for tabletop.